So I was really fortunate and I had a really great experience throughout both my time at primary school and at secondary school. I never experienced any sort of bullying and I never had any issues throughout my times at school. So before I started both primary and secondary school, my parents and I went and had a look around the school and we went round to have a look to see what needed kind of adapting so that when I went to the school I would be able to kind of, get around, access things like the toilets without any issues. At my primary school, I had little steps that I could take around and that I could use when I was like sat at the table to put my feet on. I also had a pink cushion that I took around so that I could use, to put behind me. So primary school there was, less to be altered because obviously you don't have as many lessons, so you're kind of, only in like one or two classrooms. But they did, make sure that I could like access the toilets, if I needed a step, there was one available and that kind of thing. Secondary school was a bit more kind of complex because obviously at secondary school you have a lot more subjects, so there was lots of different classrooms that I was going to be in, so we had to make sure that I could access all of them. One of the subjects that I actually took as a GCSE was food technology. So the tech department actually made me my own like hob and like kitchen worktop because obviously all of the ones that they already had were way too high for me to reach. So they made one that could actually be moved up and down. So obviously when I left the school, they didn't want it to go to waste, but that could then be used, for other people, whether they be, in a wheelchair. I also had for my science lessons, obviously most of the classrooms were kind of like laboratories and you kind of sit on those like bar stools. So they were really high for me to get on. So what they did is they just added on a few more like steps so that I could easily get on them and I had something to then rest my legs on. I think one of the coolest things in secondary school, and all of my friends will remember this, is my hockey stick that I had. So obviously hockey, we did that quite a lot in PE, and a usual hockey stick is like the size of me. So there's no way that I could use that. So again, one of the tech teachers literally got a hockey stick and cut it in half and like retaped it and everything so it looked like a professional hockey stick, but it was just smaller so that I could use it. I think having, all those adaptations, obviously the school didn't have to do it. They could have just left it, but it would have just meant that obviously that things would have been difficult for me. And it kind of makes me feel a little bit more included, so that at things like hockey, I wasn't struggling with like this giant stick.